quickly, how do you describe who you are and what you do?
Oh boy, so deep.
Well, there's just so much. I mean, why am I doing the whole page? I was like, I'm not going to read the whole thing.
I don't know who wrote that.
Yeah.
No, you know, I'm a hustler in a good way.
Corri McFadden, hustler.
Okay, well, you know, I grew up in Kansas City, and I grew up very real. And it's carried me through to who I am today. I grew up balancing the checkbook with my mom while watching cartoons. Just kind of all those moral basics. And I work really hard for everything that I have because that's always what I saw. It's you work to earn something. And so for the last, well, I mean, I had my first job at 14, stacking groceries. But, you know, for the last 10 years, I've had EDrop-Off, and it has allowed me a million opportunities to do other things that are all within the same realm that I enjoy. But when you follow your passion and do what you do, it opens up opportunities that you might not have ever thought of. And with that, it, I guess, has brought a full-page bio. But I'm a hard worker is what I am more than anything.
Ooh, and that's takeaway number one, because for anybody who's thinking about getting into the industry, breaking into the industry, hard work. You cannot replace anything.
And thick skin. Very thick skin.
Okay, so today you have built, you just said 10 years since you launched EDrop-Off.
We opened in 2004.
Wow, okay, well, I love the story, and share it again if you will, about how EDrop-Off came to be. Because we all have our starting point, right? Like, you might have an idea, you might think you know what you want to do, you might have a dream, but it's a lot of thought until the action actually happens. And your action was rather interesting as a college student.
It was.
So what happened?
So I was getting my degree in fashion design here in Chicago, and I was up late one night sewing a pair of beaded pants, which I never recommend. And I was literally like immersed within these pants. And an infomercial came on. It was 2 a.m. I was sitting in the corner of my studio at my small table, and it was for an eBay drop-off store. And I was like, that's interesting. I could do that. And I could do it with luxury and designer items. And it literally just hit me at that moment, and I was put on this crusade. It was, that's what I'm doing. And I woke up the next morning, and I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write a business plan, and I'm going to do this. And I sat with one of my teachers who agreed to let me write it for my portfolio project. And I wrote a full-blown business plan. And I sat down with my program director, and I presented it to her, and she told me it was a terrible idea and basically shot it down. And at that time, you know, someone who was basically a role model within what I was doing shot it down, a lot of people would end it there, and I could have walked out of that office and just let it be a project. But instead, I turned that as fuel, and I set it out as my mission to prove her wrong, and it gave me fuel that I couldn't have found anywhere else. I mean, I was out to literally prove her wrong. She was like my mission. Her initials are K-E. I won't say her name. No. But you know, I think from a very, very early stage, I learned to use a negative and turn it into a positive.
We should start from the beginning, because you do have a blog that everyone loves, of a digital brand. You have worked with so many different clients, from Levi's to Nordstrom, the list goes on. And you've done it in a really quick amount of time. You've done it in a short amount of time. So tell people how you got started, because I will just say for Jacey, we met when we worked, both of us, at E, and she was...
Say that. I was her assistant.
She was an executive assistant.
We worked together.
She'd just come from Texas, and I was like, this girl walks in the door every day slaying it with her outfits. And I was like, every day, I'm like, who dresses like that? Like, you know, you're in a newsroom, you throw on shorts, a t-shirt, whatever, but Jacey would come in like she owned the place. And I was like, wow, she, you know, she did head to toe every single day. But that wasn't that long ago. So tell the people how you went from, you know, you'd moved to Hollywood, and why, and how you got from the e-newsroom to where you are today.
Yes, well, I did look forward to dressing up for work every day, which is what kind of got me into this. But I actually went to DePaul University here in Chicago, and yeah, I studied journalism. Out of college, I worked for WGN, Oprah Winfrey for a little bit, NBC, wrote a couple articles for the Associated Press. was really into the whole, like, I'm going to be a journalist and go to, like, the war and report from the sidelines. But it just wasn't really checking all my boxes every day. Going to the office wasn't really, I just wasn't passionate enough about it. I didn't love waking up going to work every day. And that was a little bit of a red flag. I moved out to Los Angeles after living in Chicago for 6 years. I actually went out there to visit a friend from college, and the weather was so nice, I just stayed. It was amazing weather there. And I got the job at E shortly after, which is when I met Catt. And going into work every day, like Catt was saying, I was more looking forward to dressing up for work. I mean, to be honest with you. And I would find myself hanging out with the stylist and getting her ready. That was just so fun for me. So I started my blog just kind of as a hobby while I was working there. And this was back when, like, Who What Wear became a really big deal. Fashion Toast was like, oh my god, there's a blogger named Rumi Neely, and blogs were kind of this new thing. It wasn't something that I ever thought would end up being a career path for me in a million years. I just started it as a hobby when I was working full time. And I left E after, I think, about 1.5 years working there. I was like, maybe I'll try working in the film industry, because for some reason, like, the whole journalism thing just wasn't working, and the entertainment journalism, I was trying different types of journalism, industry reporting, production, XXX. I know what I don't want to do, so let's try to figure out what I want to do. And in between jobs, I totally was like geeking out every day to building myself this career website where I was like, instead of just emailing people a PDF of my resume, how about I build a website, because I'm a huge nerd, and I'll put my resume, my writing samples, and links to everything, and I just really, really got into that, and I sent it out to all my friends to like say, hey, like, do you guys have any jobs? Do you know any jobs? Hey, here's my site. And they were like, wow, this is really great. Will you build one for me? And I have a photography business, would you build one for me? And so I started building these websites, like, as a side gig to kind of keep me afloat during my unemployment stint. And by learning how to use Photoshop and do graphic design and build these websites, my blog became that much better. I didn't really realize at the time that I was kind of teaching myself how to blog in a way, aside from my photography side. And so yeah, the blog kind of just slowly started to get more and more readers. Actually, I can totally get into like how and why that happens. But one day, Levi's wanted to put me in one of their ad campaigns because of a friend of mine. She was like, well, you've got this great blog, and they're looking for, you know, just like a wholesome girl to be in one of their ads. Like, and I told them about you. Would you be interested? And I'm like, hell yeah, I'd be interested in being that. And that's kind of the first time that I was like, wow, this could actually work.
You can pay the bills.
I could actually get paid to do this. It felt like wrong to take money from them, because I was like, I'm doing it for free. This is awesome. And then that brought in a whole new slew of readership, and then it just slowly started to grow and grow and grow. And then after like a couple of months, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna go for it and just see what I can do with this. I'll give myself a year, and I'm just gonna really just own it. And like, this is what I'm doing, and tell everybody, and like, my blog is Damsel in Dior, hear me fucking roar, sorry. Hear me roar, I did so good. I cuss a lot. I was like really coming about to go.
And he, you know, asking for help, I think, was something I had never done before. And instinctually, I did it. And I think that was another moment where I was like, oh my God, like, my brother is a resource. Or, you know, like, and you start realizing there's like all these resources around you. And, you know, people want to help you because, you know, obviously if they don't want to help you, then, you know, you shouldn't probably be around them. I mean, unless they're your family. Then girl, make a lot of money and use it for therapy to get through that. It helps. But yeah, my brother George helped me write this, like, very short, sweet email, like, hi, I just moved here, fresh out of Michigan. I actually think we have a mutual friend, blah, blah, blah. You know, I would love to assist any of your artists. The next day, I was supposed to go back into Bendel's, and she called me. She had her assistant call me, and she's like, hi, I have a makeup artist, Paul Starr, who's no longer with us, God rest his soul, was doing a Victoria's Secret fashion show, like a charity fashion show. And she's like, can you go there and do makeup and be one of the assistants? I was like, I will be there, and like, I was so excited. I didn't even change. I think I was wearing like brown Adidas pants that had the snaps. gray white beater, and flip-flops. I mean, fresh out of Detroit. Like, I don't even, and I actually was one of those people that cared about what I was wearing, but you know, I was like, I'm running. I don't care. Run. And I didn't, I called Henry Vendels and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm never coming back in. I literally just left the most unprofessional messages. Like, I literally said something like, sorry, I'm never coming back in. And I went there, and it's funny because I just showed up and I felt like, you know, I started talking to a model and we started hanging out and we started taking selfies, and it was Carolina Kurkova. So I was like, you know, dying, trying to pretend like I am the most professional makeup artist she has ever met in her life. And then Paul Starr kind of recognized that, and he was the head makeup artist, so he came up to us, and he's like, why don't you guys come over on my side? Like, why are you guys having all the fun? And, you know, I was just, I don't even know if I was 100% myself. I didn't even know myself at that time. But what I knew that I was, like, being fun. I was bringing something to the table. I was being me. I was being me, like whoever I was at that time.
Like when I came to LA, I was like introducing myself. Hi, I'm with Spaz Magazine. Ew. And so I realized, I was like, it's time to change it up. And that killed me because I felt like I was actually starting to post like 5 days a week. I was like, Spaz Mag was really like kind of picking up, and I was like, no, it doesn't feel right. Like, I need to change it. And I decided to rebrand and just call it Sazan. And it took me a long time to decide, like, what do I want to call my blog? And I think it's when I realized, like, what my brand was, it took me a while. Because I was like, I want to do fashion, I want to do this, I want to do that. But I think for me specifically, it was like realizing that I still had this passion for being in front of the camera, but not necessarily reading a teleprompter. It was more of like engaging with an audience, even if they're not there. So, you know, and that's so weird. It's like, yeah, I had imaginary friends growing up. So, you know, and that's when YouTube came about for me, and I said, you know what, I want to expand into the YouTube world. And I think with YouTube and the new blog name collectively, I started realizing, like, my personality is my brand. So I can do anything that I want, whether it's traveling or whatever, but I need to put my brand into all of these things, and that's just being me, you know? And it sounds really cliche, but I tried the whole black and white, and like for me, and it works so well for you. I see it, I'm like, that's amazing. But I'm like you, I'm a Libra, and like you would think I'm not.